Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. To start today's webinar, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the lands, wherever we are working from today. For me, being in Canberra, that is the Ngunnawal people, and I acknowledge their ongoing connection with community, culture, and country here. Today, the theme of today's webinar is Networking, Mentors and Growth Pathways. It's the sixth and final webinar in our first season of the Future Makers program. The good news is that we plan to be back in the coming months with a second season, but we are delighted today to be joined by two excellent presenters, Jody Dunn and Melina Morrison. And without further delay, I would like to hand over to our moderator for today, Heidi Cooper, who will introduce our experts and lead us through today's discussion. Welcome, Heidi, and it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it. And hello, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all again. As Andrew said, this is our sixth and final session in this series, but delighted to obviously to be sharing with you that we will be continuing in a couple of months. We've covered some fantastic topics and great discussions over the past couple of months as part of this series. Now, as many of you know, this came out of a lot of work that has been done by the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry and state and territory chambers of commerce across Australia, which was a focus on providing women with the skills, experience and opportunities that they need to be able to grow and thrive as a business owner, a business leader, an entrepreneur, in whatever form it is that you are engaging in our business community, making sure that we have those opportunities for us to come and connect, but also to learn and to be able to grow both as individuals and also our organisations as well. It's been an incredible experience to be a part of this, and particularly to hear from exceptional women like the women that we have on our panel today, as well as women like you who are listening. We have heard some really common themes come through. We've heard enormous opportunity, but we've also heard challenges as well. And this series has really worked through a lot of those different topic areas that are important to women in business and provided the skills, but also the opportunity for you to learn from others. Today's topic is such an important one, and as Andrew said, this is really looking at professional networks and also those connections that you have across your professional networks, but also the support that you may need as well. We're going to look at how to build meaningful relationships, how to engage effectively with peers, but with mentors as well, and how to make the most out of networking opportunities. This is something that we heard really clearly from our female leaders and business owners, that it's so important, and we know that from a business growth perspective this is such a critical part of what it means to be a business leader, but it's not necessarily something that women prioritise or necessarily put in as part of their growth strategy. So it's a really important thing for us to be thinking about, and today we are going to be hearing from some of the best. But before we get started, as always, there are just a few housekeeping things that I do need to start off with. If you'd like to use live captions, you can turn those on by clicking the CC or show captions at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There will be, as always, a Q&A session at the end of this discussion. So I'll have a conversation with our excellent panelists. And then if you would like to participate in the Q&A, then please put your questions into the chat. As is the case with all of our sessions that we have done to date, this will be targeted, it'll be practical, and you'll gain incredible insights from it. But it's really important to remember that any of the information that is provided on these webinars is general information only. And if you're looking for any specific information for your business, that it's really important that you seek the appropriate advice that is specific to your business. So it is now my pleasure to introduce our panel, and today joining us again, I'm so pleased to see Jody online again.
Yes.
Jody Dunn, who is the founder and principal of HR Consultant and Envisage HR. Now, Jody brings with her extensive experience across people management, leadership, mentoring and building capability through others. Jody works closely with business owners to build capability, strengthen performance and support individuals to grow through others. And Jody is the owner of her own business as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
We're also joined by Melina Morrison, CEO of Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, who brings her experience across networks, advocacy, and pathways to leadership through industry and collective models. Together, our panelists are going to bring a valuable combination of perspectives from practical insights, but also what it means to build and leverage a network and mentoring, and how it is that you can utilize those relationships to grow not only yourself as a leader, but also your business as well. So, to get started, let's talk about, everyone talks about networking and everyone talks about mentoring. Lots of women, when I'm talking to them, they say, what does that actually mean? What is networking? Is it turning up to an event? Is it just making sure that you're out and about? Jody, I thought I might start with you first, and
Mm,
then Melina, I'm going to come to you about the importance of it. But
mm.
Jody, can you start off by telling me, when everyone says, "Oh, you need to be networking," networking is really important for your business. What does that mean?
Well, I know from my journey, I started my business up 15 years ago and still is the case. Networking is such a foundation, should be just integrated into all of your phase of your business cycle. And networking is so powerful. And it can be as simple as connecting with someone through, LinkedIn or through someone else that you know. But the powerful tool of it, I think it's helped me build my business. Probably 90% of my business is built on networks and
Mm.
still is to this day. And then those networks become referrals and those referrals become more. And if you're authentic and you connect with an authentic person that you want to network with, I mean, it works and it's amazing.
It's gold.
Oh, mwah, I love it.
So why is it important then, Melina? I mean, Jody's all in. Networking is important for
Yeah.
us, but why is it important, Melina? Why does this matter?
Well, it's what we're doing here today. We're talking to
Mm,
each other, we're connecting. It's a huge pleasure to be here online with a whole room of women. I can't
mm,
see all these wonderful business entrepreneurs, but
yeah.
what we're doing is we are sharing information. We're building solidarity, if you like, connections.
Mm,
We're trying to overcome the asymmetries of information, which often mean that we're not empowered to make the types of decisions that are going to advance either our careers personally or our organizations and businesses. And I think there's two dimensions. There is the personal dimension, and Jody talked about it so passionately. It actually gives us the energy to try and advance ourselves, but to feel confident and enthusiastic about what we're doing because we're not isolating ourselves.
mm,
On an organizational level, we can actually use the idea of networking and creating connections between businesses as a structure for advancing our whole industry. And that's what we do in cooperatives. They
mm,
are clusters of businesses working together, but the concept is the same. Sometimes the most enlightened form of self-interest is to cooperate with others, to work together in order to advance our own
mm,
interests by advancing all.
I think that's a really important
mm,
point about that cooperative piece. And we see that a lot through the chamber network, that networking is, such an important
mm,
catalyst to that business matching or that business partnering opportunity. And one of the things that we hear from our businesses all the time is that this is absolutely critical. I've got a couple of really live examples at the moment in Queensland that, as we're preparing for the growth opportunity that's coming from Brisbane 2032 and beyond,
mm,
many of our businesses are saying, I'd like to go for a tender, I'd like to put a business opportunity up, but I can't necessarily do it on my own. And
mm,
they're looking for those business partners. And one of the best ways to do that is to do that through networking.
mm,
Um, but Jody, you mentioned something around those authentic and
mm,
real relationships.
mm,
Can you talk to me a little bit about how do you know and how do you find out over time if you have,
mm,
you've had that initial meeting, you think there's something
mm,
you can do. How do you progress that? But also, how do you know when there's
mm.
maybe not the right connection for you or your business?
Well, I think we have to look at networking as not transactional. And I think sometimes it is building a relationship. And I've noted that, when you're building networks, they're not built for today, they're built for tomorrow. So what we need to do is not make the relationship a transactional relationship and not thinking about what you can get out of that person. It's building that, having those conversations and really having meaningful relationships with the person. It's like anything. You're not going to refer someone to a business that you don't know anyone, or you've just been liaising with them, on socials. I mean, let's face it though, it's scary to think about, oh, do I have to go to a networking function and stand there and look like, I'm picking someone up? No, because that's what we do, right? The worst thing you want to do is walk into a room and you don't know anyone. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can start building that relationship through LinkedIn, online, through your state, your chamber, all of these amazing networks that you can reach out to, and then you can build that confidence, and it's trust. Like, I've got my networks from 15 years ago when I started my business up, or even before that, and they're still absolutely massive advocates for me. So, but it has taken work, and it's about building those authentic ones. But along the way, I've said no as well. So again, as you were saying, Heidi, it's about building those authentic relationships and making sure, that you've got your values are aligned as well, because they're going to be advocating for you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And your point about that longevity of networks is really critical.
Yeah.
You don't know where someone's going to end up. You don't know what they're going to end up doing, and you don't know what that potential, that partnership opportunity is. I loved what you said about it's not for today, but it's for tomorrow.
Yes.
Having said that though, we are all very time poor today, right? So how do you decide where to invest your time? And, I've had, business leaders, and particularly female business leaders, say to me, you know what, I have been to every opening of an envelope. I can't keep doing that. Melina, can you talk a little bit about what's the difference between just turning up to an event as opposed to getting outcomes and making that a really useful part of your time?
Yeah, look, I think that's a great question, and I want to really reinforce and I absolutely endorse what Jodie's saying about the reciprocity that's involved in networking. You are always building trust networks at the same time, and in many ways, you're paying it forward, whether you know you are or not, because sometimes we think of ourselves, as as a silo, and we're thinking about what we need or our business needs, but there's also what we are adding in. The more we give in, the more we get out. That really, in my experience, works in the long term. And I think when we approach networking, the types of organizations we've already started talking about, I can't endorse enough how valuable being part of the Chamber Network has been for my own personal journey and the journey of the organization that I lead. We do need, from time to time, to think about the objectives. It is a return on investment, sometimes of money. It's also a return on investment of your time, and your time is precious. You do need to calibrate your objectives against what you are putting your time into, and in an honest way say, am I actually meeting my own personal or organizational goals in giving this time in return for that output? And I think that exercise of just saying, look, I have time, I'm time limited, and so I have to apportion the time and the investment that I'm making in the various activities. Everything can look good, particularly at the beginning, but that will be a kind of benchmark that we can set ourselves for whether we need to actually redirect our energies in another direction.
Great advice, Melina. And you don't always know. You can't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be until you get there and give it a go. And I absolutely reiterate Melina's suggestion around anyone on this call. Connect with your state chamber. There are events, networking, workshops, lunches. There's a whole heap of opportunities that you can be a part of. And what it means is that you're growing your connection with the community of the state that you're in. And the other thing is that a lot of the work that we do as well across the chamber network is about providing businesses to move across boundaries and borders. And obviously the Australian Chamber as well brings that all together as well. So, the chamber network is the largest and most representative business business network in Australia and actually in the world as well. So a great opportunity for people who are listening. If you're wondering where to start, best place to start. Now,
Heidi,
Jodie,
can I just give an example
I'd
in
love an
relation to
example.
my journey with the
Yes.
chamber? A lot of what happens, and I'm sure this has been Jodie's experience as well, is kind of accidental. So we have to be open to the accident of things happening, an invitation, doors open. You can go through them, and then you have to calibrate whether it's a good return on investment of time. But what happened to me with the chamber is I knew nothing about the chamber network or ACI when I started the organization, and because of the outreach of the chamber and a very enthusiastic person who sought me out and sat me down over a coffee and said, "You should join us." That was my entry. And had that not happened, I may not have found this amazing opportunity at the early stages of our organization.
Right.
So be open to opportunities that sort of
Yeah.
materialize as well.
That's so great, and it's a wonderful example. And I think that being open to opportunities, and you don't actually know until you do give it a go. But Jodie, can you talk a little bit through, I know you work a lot with small businesses as well. Um, for some people it's not easy, right? For some people it's not easy to just, walk into a room, start up that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've heard consistently through this
Yes.
series, but also the
Mm.
Women in Business Summit that ACI
Mm.
held earlier this year is a confidence piece, and that confidence about
Mm.
women as leaders, but also confidence around their own
Mm.
business as well. Are you able to
Mm.
talk through some of some of those
Yeah.
opportunities that you've seen, but also
Mm.
what advice can you give to potentially
Mm.
leaders who haven't done this yet and they're not quite sure where to
Yeah,
start?
absolutely. Well, I think about network, thinking about it with curiosity, going into it that way. And as I said, as you're building authentic relationships, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm a pretty outgoing person. I can talk from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, right? I'm a pain in the butt. But, so for me, networking is quite natural. But it is, as you were saying, it's about believing in yourself. It's about believing in your product, your service, and what you do. And if you believe in that, you can be very quiet and shy and reserved. But I tell you what, your passion will come through in a different way. And so it's almost like building, and I think Melina said it earlier on about building your brand, being able to, really then showcase that in how you build those networks. And I'm going to give you one little secret sauce of one of my secrets, in how I've continued to do that, is that I do like to give people a little bit of intel into what I do. So maybe a bit of free advice. So I'm in HR, I'm in building businesses, I'm in going through those phases. So I like to give some free advice to someone so that when they think about HR, they remember the wacko woman that they met at the function. And she's going to be able to help me because she gave me some free advice, and that was blooming good advice. So I think you've got to give a little bit of yourself as well and give or take. And I think Melina was saying as well about whether it's return on investment. I think all networking, if you get that connection, is a return on investment. Always.
Great.
Yeah.
I think they are such great examples that you've given, Jodie. One of the things I often talk to business leaders about is I keep it pretty simple into three areas. Firstly, be really clear on how you're going to answer the question. So what do you do? There's nothing worse than sort of stumbling through that. Have a really clear, succinct, natural way of explaining yourself and your business, and know that before you walk in the room. Two, ask questions. Asking questions is the most wonderful way to learn, but to also learn about the people around you. And people always love someone who's asked them something about themselves. So ask some questions. If it's hard, if the conversation's getting a bit stale or a bit awkward, ask some questions. And then the other thing is also be willing to move around the room. Like, it's people are there and they know that they want to talk to different people. It's okay to say thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I've got a couple of other people I need to connect with, and be willing to move around the room. And four, I think I said three, but the fourth one is follow up. So if you go and meet, if you meet some people, if you've either got their card or they've said connect with me on LinkedIn, do that, because that's a great opportunity. And otherwise, what ends up happening is the weeks and months pass, and then you think, who was that person? I wanted to get back in touch with them. But if you've simply reached out, you've exchanged contact details, details or you've connected on LinkedIn, it's a really, really great way for you to be able to Jodie's point, do something today that may, benefit in the future. Now, I did want to move from networking onto mentoring because that was another topic that we did want to talk about. Now, mentoring is something that I find really interesting, and it's something I've been curious about really my entire career and the whole time that I've been leading businesses, but leading teams as well. It's often talked about as, a really important part of growth, both for individuals, but also for organizations. And we know that peer-to-peer mentoring is a really important thing for our businesses. But in a practical term, Melina, I'm going to ask you, what does mentoring look like?
Well, I think it can be a very personal experience. So if you're fortunate enough to be in an organizational context where you are given the opportunity to work with another leader or someone that you can gain experience from, then that process of mentoring can be quite a structured process that you can set goals and have an education journey. But mentoring for me is also about how you put yourself in the space or the ecosystem of either the industry that you're in, the business environment, or your own personal aspirations, your career goals. And that comes in so many ways. We have so many pathways now to find mentors because of the online community, because of our availability of podcasts, of books, of education journeys. We can really design our own mentoring journey, and that can be done, at little to no cost as well. It does mean applying ourselves to thinking about what is it, who are the types of leaders I admire, what is it that my business needs to be able to succeed. Think of it as a community of interest. How can you place yourself in a space where even remote mentors, people who are so distant that you're never going to be able to meet them personally, you can still use them as a mentor by following their, often they have given a lot of their content, if you like, that downloadable content in the space around podcasts and articles, books, etc. These are the spaces that we can gain mentorship journeys for that are not interpersonal.
Melina, I absolutely love the way that you're thinking about that because I often speak with leaders and with women, female leaders as well, and they're almost stuck on this idea of a mentor, and they say, "Oh, I don't have a mentor. I don't have someone who's been with me my whole career, or I don't have someone who's playing that mentoring role." I think what you've described is actually what is a true version of mentors throughout the life of your career. And I think that it's really important. A mentoring experience doesn't necessarily need to be a formalized mentoring experience. It can come in so many different forms. And your point that you may not even meet the person and they can form a mentoring or a career aspiration piece for you. It can be a one-off as well. It can be be one coffee. It can be one conversation that you have with a person. It may be a person who is more senior to you. It may be a person who isn't, who is a peer or, even is someone who's going to coach you. And particularly, we're seeing more and more of, particularly as work is evolving as well, more senior leaders learning from more entry levels in their career as well. So I love the way that you're really challenging us to think mentoring is important, and mentoring is a form of growth. And mentoring is also a way to make you think differently to the way that you're currently thinking, almost put a bit of a mirror up to yourself. And Melina, I love the way that you've described how mentoring can come in so many different forms. I think it's a really important thing for us to remember and not get stuck on what we think is a traditional one. Jodie, I feel like you've got something to add here because I know that you're talking
I have.
businesses all the time. So give us your insights on mentoring.
Well, I've been lucky enough to do the flip side. So I've had a mentor for the last 15 years, but then I've had some others in between, but I'm also a mentor to lots of business owners as well. So I guess a great mentor isn't someone who's going to have all the answers for you. It's someone whose help you're going to see for yourself. But also along the journey, you might shift mentors. You might think, okay, I'm going to I'm into a next phase in my journey, and I'm going to actually have another mentor that I need to help me take my business to the next level. So I promise you that having a mentor built on trust and respect, and can I tell you, my mentor of 15 years, he bosses me around. Don't you worry. He tells me the only person in my life that can tell me what to do, and I'm at attention. But, again, they don't necessarily have the power to help you make decisions, but they guide you in. And I think the other point that I wanted to make is there is a difference between coaching and mentoring. So coaching is really around open-ended questions, formal and scheduled, but mentoring is giving those direct advice based on your own path and their path. And it's flexible and it's really led by you as a mentee. So just remembering that as well. Mentors are really great to help keep you in line with where you need to go. And again, I wouldn't be successful without my mentors.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to understand all those different forms of mentoring because
Yeah.
people experience different things
Yeah.
throughout their
Heidi,
career.
I think we should also add in, I'm sure someone will pull us up on this, particularly I just was thinking of it
Yeah.
when you said coaching, Jody.
Yes.
We are in an AI
Yes.
era now, and although I'm not doing this myself, you can theoretically construct a coach
Mm.
and or a mentor using an AI agent that can channel the thoughts, the ideas, and the
Mm.
guidance of leaders who might be very
Mm.
distant, remote, or
Mm.
not
Yeah.
proximate to yourself, but you can get some of that guidance. I guess we need to be mindful that
Mm.
it's through the filter of AI, but I just think we're in a really exciting era around
Mm.
personal development and
Mm.
Melina, I love that you've raised that. And I feel like we've just actually traversed that full spectrum of mentoring from that more
Yeah.
traditional style that you talked about, Jody, all the
Yes.
way through to,
Yeah.
occasional and incidental through to,
Yeah.
what does technology mean now for how
Mm.
we can gather information and,
Mm.
ask to learn and understand from people who've gone before us, whereas previously that would have been a really labor intensive thing to do.
Mm.
You can actually do that really efficiently through AI. So I love that you've brought it up. While we are talking about mentoring, though, and particularly those occasional and
Yeah.
incidental opportunities, one of the things I often say to leaders, but also business owners, is ask to catch up with people, right? Ask to have a
Mm.
coffee with them.
yeah.
My experience is people always will if they can and if they have the time, and if not, they'll probably suggest someone. So
Mm.
even if,
Yeah.
someone might say, oh, look, I just can't at the moment, or, I'm not really in that space
Mm.
at the moment of whatever the business is that you're talking about. But what I do know is somebody who can. And, even if you get a no at first, ask that question, say, look, totally understand. Is there somebody else you could suggest in your network that I could meet with? And what that's doing is
Mm.
that's broadening your network as you go along.
Mm.
I'd like to talk about, sometimes people talk to me about, when you're building your network, it's important to have that brand. Um, I'd like to, maybe Melina, I might go to you first.
Mm.
That piece around, you talked a lot about the technological phase that we're in. LinkedIn is big for people. How important is that speaking, the thought leadership side of things? How important is that for as you're establishing yourself and what you look like in your network?
Yes, look, I think back to my point about paying it forward and
Mm.
reciprocity. I think that often we don't realize that our engagement with opportunities like speaking roles, and it's a way of getting some self-reflection going. We can act through
Mm.
engaging in those opportunities. You help refine what you are as a leader
Mm.
or as an emerging leader. It's kind of in the reflection and the articulation of that. And sometimes the biggest learning moments I've had when it's not been about my own sort of advancement or the advancement of the
Mm.
organization, but I am being asked by someone for advice and assistance, and it's that it's a chance to reframe it. Oh,
Mm.
actually, this is a journey we're all on. We all feel imposter syndrome, by the way. I know it's an overused term,
Mm.
but we all feel it. And so that active listening, I think you said
Mm.
ask questions, Heidi. Being
Mm.
an active listener, I wish in my earlier career I'd done more listening um,
Mm.
and um, uh,
Mm.
and asking questions. but I was so um, keen on getting the advice and the download that I needed
Mm,
kind of for the organization because I was so ambitious about what the project around cooperatives.
mm,
I perhaps didn't allow myself enough engagement in what other people were doing and always take the opportunity, feel the fear
mm,
and do it. So,
mm,
that request to be on a panel or to speak at something, a community event, take it if you can, because it's in the journey of doing that you
mm,
will learn so much about yourself as a leader.
Completely agree. And Jodie, you
mm.
mentioned before about sometimes that free bit of advice or something like you're positioning yourself when you do that.
Yes,
Can
that's
you
right.
talk practically through a couple of examples of what you have done?
Yeah, so I guess again, and I also wanted to just state that when you are building networks and having mentors, you are showing vulnerability, and that's important. I think when you meet someone, to be honest, it says, "I'm perfect, my business is perfect, everything's great." I mean, they're lying, let's be honest. So I think, being authentic and showing vulnerability, I think is a really is a great trait to show. So that's a really important part of that. But yes, giving a piece of yourself to someone to show them, showcase who you are, and what you do, and giving that time, your bit of your time for free. Like, I mean, I meet with people. I'm busy as well, but I see the value in connecting. And as Melina was saying, we are going into a very AI driven, society, but we also don't want to just talk to bots. We want to talk to people. We want the human connection. And being on a journey of building your business can be really lonely. So to be able to connect with females in this sort of forum, I was so excited to be asked to be a part of this because, women, we're amazing. We're doing amazing things in the business world. And to be able to connect with a lot of women is great. So, making sure that you show that bit of vulnerability, giving a piece of yourself, showing people that you're amazing and that you know your stuff. People will remember that. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, that
We
was
went a bit
great.
around
Thank
it.
you. Now, I can see that we're starting to get some questions through
Oh,
the
great.
Q&A. So,
Great.
what I might do is, SK, would you like to get started? And please remember that there is the Q&A box there for anyone who would like to put a question up.
Sure, thanks, Heidi. So the first question we have is, that's interesting what Melina was saying about accidental outcomes from networking. So how do you anticipate which
Mm,
things are likely to be the highest yield for accidental outcomes? Because I don't have endless time for networking. I run a business.
Yeah, so important. And I mean, that's what we were starting to touch on before about that
mm,
ROI. Where do you spend your time? Now, you don't always know before you get started, but you do need to start making some discerning decisions around where you do spend your time. But Melina, would you like to explore that a little
mm.
bit more? How do we
Yep.
make decisions about where to spend your time?
Look,
Taking into account that we want to do accidental stuff, but we can't just be wandering around the world trying to run into accidental opportunities.
and as I'm thinking about this, what I said before, I'm realizing that there's a bit of an imposter in this. Look, I really do think that reflecting about an experience
Mm,
afterwards, taking that time to think, do I need to do that again? Honestly, was it a good investment of
mm,
time in terms of my overall objectives is a good thing to do. The
mm,
honest answer for myself is I threw myself into everything. So I kind of ran at accidental opportunities, and it's kind of in hindsight, it's like that
mm,
perhaps wasn't the best investment of time, but it's only in the journey of going through that I
mm,
can now be perhaps more, I think it's practice, more discerning. Discernment is an
mm,
experiential thing and it's learned over time. So don't beat yourself up if you feel like I've had a year in
mm,
this organization and really like I should have been running the business a bit more. I think that's absolutely
mm,
fine. That's part of the learning, but building on it and making sure that you are trying to refine you know, your
mm,
spidey feelings so that you get better at anticipating whether something is going to be of value going
mm,
forward
mm,
is really important.
Yeah, completely agree.
mm,
And I think it is a balance, like with everything in running a business, you do need to, you need to make decisions about where to spend time. But I think what is one of the really important messages that has come out of this session is that you do need to allocate time to networking. So it is important, and you might go to some things and go, well, that was a waste of time, but that actually is a learning experience in itself. And you know that that may not be somewhere that you need to be connecting. But what is probably critical to take from this is, like so many other areas of your business, you do need to invest in this side of it. The next one, SK.
I asked someone to be a mentor for me some time ago, and he's a very nice man, but I've realized he's probably not the right fit for me. Any advice on how I can extract myself and how should I have avoided this?
Jody, I feel like you're great at helping people to work out who they should be connecting with, and maybe to get themselves out of a situation that is not what they thought it was going to be.
Absolutely. And I think it's just important when you're starting a mentor-mentoree relationship that you set the boundaries right from the start and set the expectations so that then you can walk away comfortably, and so can your mentor. I think that's a really important part of building that trusting relationship, that, you know, it shouldn't be ending in disaster, and that you could be able to part ways just lovingly and off you go into the sunset. But I think it's just about having an honest conversation to let him know that you're on a different pathway now, and that you've really appreciated the time he spent with you, but now you're sort of wanting to focus on another, you know, another trajectory, I guess. And hopefully that he will just take that in his stride and appreciate that he's been able to assist you. But be honest and authentic with yourself. If it's not working, absolutely jump out of it, because you're just then wasting it, both your and their time, as you sort of move through that journey. Because it's a very intimate relationship, being a mentor and having a mentor. As I said, you're showing lots of vulnerability. You're really opening yourself up to you know, what's working and what's not. And so as business owners, we don't like to do that, but we have to in order to move forward, showing your vulnerability. So make sure it's a fit, but set the scene and the expectations from the start. I hope that's the right answer.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I think that point about having that open and honest conversation, but also about, you know, clarity around each other's time and what you're contributing to. The other thing as well is it actually doesn't mean it needs to be over per se. You know, you might have a different type of relationship. You know, you might connect at another point in time, or you might, you know, have a coffee once a year. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you never have that contact again. And if anything, one of the most important things within networks is to keep as much open as possible.
And sorry, I just wanted to also just quickly go back to the question before. A lot of the people that I connected with in my networking journey that I thought, oh, that was a bit of a waste of my time. Can I tell you, it comes back in circles. And generally, if they have a great experience with you, even if you don't feel at that time that there's a connection or that there needs to be further development in that relationship, it'll come back to you. And I think even Melina, you were saying before around payback, or you said something like that. I don't know, you used a great word
forward,
there.
I think it was,
Sorry, pay forward. That definitely happens. So just give it your all. Don't think at the end of it, oh, that was a waste of my time. Just think about it, that this is part of the journey, and that more than likely that might come back. So many times that's happened with me. I'm like, yes, great, they remember me. It's fantastic.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with you on that, Jody. And I'm trying to solve a problem at the moment in my organisation, and I was sitting there racking my brains, and I went back to, you know, people that I was connected with 15 and 20 years ago, because I was like, I think that, you know, they can help me. They can, and you know, and so now I'm calling up colleagues from, you know, a different part of my life and a different part of my career who are, you know, helping me solve something today that I had no idea 20 years ago that they'd be helping.
Fantastic. Love it.
SK, next question.
We have one here that says 100% agree on your point, Melina, about doing the scary thing. Saying yes to a panel event was the best decision I made. It wasn't as scary as I had made it out to be. It was actually fun. Small comment.
Awesome. That's great.
Great.
Next one.
Great.
This one says, do you think networking online has much value as in person? I'm both an introvert and I live on a farm, so it's a lot of effort to go into town and do and go out to my local chambers events.
So look, I think, Melina, given the fact that you touched on that tech side of things, did you want to start that off?
Yeah, look, I think it needs must, you know, if you are geographically isolated,
mm,
if you can't get to the interpersonal side of things, I mean, try and involve yourself. I really support what Jody says about as much face to face as possible,
mm,
because it's human experience after
mm,
all. You know, we live, you know, the focus on AI at the
mm,
moment is making us really focus on what is the
mm,
difference in terms of the interpersonal.
mm,
So that's really important. But even in the online world, we can still have those interpersonal connections. And today we're
mm,
online, you know, and I hope we're radiating personality you know, our
mm,
connection, you know, our inner selves as much as possible. But I think really
mm,
use the technology as much as possible. Previous generations of women entrepreneurs didn't have access to this
mm,
pathway. So we also have to think about what we've got as tools that we haven't had in the past.
mm,
And, you know, I think this is a huge opportunity for women, in particular in business, to really surge in their, you know,
mm,
you know, in their dominance
mm,
representation in business, if you like, because there is now this online
mm,
world that they can engage with.
mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great way of looking at it,
Yeah.
Melina. And yeah, I think there's a couple of things in that. I do
Mm,
agree that technology does provide us with more
mm,
tools, so it enables us to access things and people and places that we may not have necessarily been able to access. There is something incredibly valuable in face to face,
mm,
because one of the things that we have learnt through online engagement is that it does tend to be a little bit more transactional than what you get from a much more organic conversation, and it
mm.
tends to be. I mean, there's four of us online now, but it does tend to be a little bit more one on one. Whereas when you're in a room of people, that's
Yeah.
when someone says, "Oh, Jody, you should meet Melina," and
Mm,
you don't have
absolutely.
that online. So it's a great tool, it's a great complement,
Mm,
but also looking for those opportunities where you can be in the community that you want to be a part of is really important.
mm,
The only other thing I'd add to that, and I say this to everyone I speak with, and it's not just about networking, it's about any part of your business.
mm.
We will always lean into the stuff that we find easiest as opposed to the stuff that we find harder. And I did notice in that
Yes.
question the comment about the introvert. Now,
Mm,
you know, regardless of what it is, whether it's finance or whether it's marketing, whether it's
mm,
networking, we always lean to the bit that is easier for
Mm.
us
yeah.
naturally than the bit that pushes us outside of our comfort zone. So
Mm,
always ask yourself that question: Are
mm,
you inadvertently restricting yourself from doing something because of something that you've got a
mm,
bias towards, as
mm,
opposed to pushing yourself into another
mm,
area?
mm.
SK, next question.
I have a very relevant follow-up here. How do I come across as genuine when I'm trying to make a connection online?
Great. Jody, would you like to? Because I feel like
Mm.
we feel you through this, Jody. So you tell us.
Yeah.
um, how do
Do
you?
I look genuine? I
You
look
do
genuine.
look genuine.
Okay, so sorry, the question was how do I seem genuine online? So they probably haven't met the person yet. It's about that connectivity. So I always think about not only what's in it for me, but what's in it for them. So we have to be really respectful of people's time. So our time is really important and we protect that space, but we also have to protect the space of the people that we're connecting with. So we might have some 5 minutes to send them a message, but they might not have 5 minutes to respond. So I think it's around being kind to when you're delving and starting to build that relationship online, to ask when's the best time to call you. Would you like to catch up over Teams, or would you like, to meet face to face, or whatever it is? But ask them what they want to start with. In the past, I know, 30 odd years ago, it was about you had to be very direct, and this is when we meet. But now we've got to be really respectful of other people's time. So I think it's about just building the relationship that way, to ask them what they want and then give them a little bit of something of yourself as well. Like, oh, it'd be great to connect. I see that you've been advertising for this, and this. We've got a really great product today, and I'd love to send you a sample of that. Would you be okay if I did that? So you're really starting to start that connection online and build that trust. Does that answer
Melina,
that question?
yeah, it does. It's great. And
Yeah.
Melina, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I agree with everything you're saying, Jody. There's also
Mm,
something about this is a great example, this webinar. A lot of
mm,
the way we interact is kind of in these sort of platforms. And this is more a kind of performance tip. Um, we're restricted because we haven't got the whole person. We're not in that, that personal space,
Mm.
that real space. So this is what we've got to communicate within our voice.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people online who I know personally are very warm people, but they don't come across that way.
Mm.
And there are some tricks around just how you present yourself,
Mm.
how your warmth can be conveyed in how
Mm.
you actually turn up on screen. Like this is a very specific thing, but this is a screen
Mm.
environment and it's very limiting in some ways. So
Yeah.
it's worth, doing this experiment with
Yeah.
people who you know and love. How am I coming across?
Mm.
Do I look happy? Do I look enthusiastic? What could I do just in
Okay.
terms of often it's just facial expressions.
Mm.
You're on all the time. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love your performance tip there, Melina. And I
Yeah.
think as well that's even thinking about where your computer is, where the camera is, don't do
Mm.
it in the car, holding your phone down here like
Ah.
this. If you're wanting to engage with somebody, then do it and do it properly. And
Yeah.
yeah.
one of the things that I often think about is how would you set yourself up if you were sitting and having a coffee in front of them?
Mm.
If you're doing that online, because sometimes interviews are done online as
Mm.
well. If you're doing that online, or if you're pitching, or if you've got a tender, or whatever it might be, what
Mm.
would you do? How would you look? What would you wear? Where would you position your camera so that you could see them, that you're looking them in the eye?
Mm.
All of those things that you were doing. If it was a coffee,
Yeah.
think about that with your computer and your
Mm.
engagement as well. SK,
Mm.
next question.
Sales is a key part of my job. How can I network without seeming transactional?
Oh, so this is such a good question. I get asked it all the
Mm.
time. Jody, I'm going to go to you first because obviously, when you are networking, you're also
Yeah.
thinking about your business
Of
as well.
course.
How do you do it?
Yeah. Sorry, can you just ask the question again? It was they're in sales and
How do I network without trying to sound transactional?
So is that basically not looking
yeah.
like you're selling?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what we do sometimes is that we start to build our network only when we need it.
Mm.
So you need to start building relationships today so that then in the future the opportunities are born. That's what I sort of think about. So again, it's about being your authentic self. The traditional sales, like many years ago, I was a traditional salesperson, and I'll be honest, I was pretty good at it, right? Um, I can sell ice to the Eskimos, but that back then, that traditional transactional, I can give you something, what are you going to give me? But today it is about building foundations of really strong relationships and trust and respect. If someone trusts you and feel that connection with you straight away, you can sell them anything. Like, let's be honest, you really can. Like today, I could sell ice to you, even though you know what I mean. I'm being a smart one. But you can really sell anything. So, but you've got to build those authentic relationships. So I think with sales, the traditional sales model of, I need to get a sale and this is what I have to do, that's gone. It's about building relationships. It's that account management piece first before you get the sale. That would be how I would think about how you build those relationships and think future, not think, oh, I have to get this sale today. You won't. How often do you get a sale immediately when you've met someone for the first time? A lot, depending on your industry that you're in, it never happens straight overnight. But if you leave a lasting impression, they're going to want to come back to you whenever they need that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, that lasting impression piece.
Mm.
And then also remember we were talking a little bit earlier about asking questions and active listening. And
Mm.
that's a really
Yeah.
quick and easy way to shift
Mm.
the dynamic of the conversation. If you
Mm.
feel like you're entering into a telling phase, shift it to an
Yeah,
asking phase, and that will shift the dynamic of the conversation.
definitely.
Next one, SK.
This one's on mentoring. When you're asking
Mhm.
someone to be your mentor, should you go in with a plan, an elevator pitch, or can it be more informal than that?
I'm going to ask you first, Melina, because I feel like Jody,
Mm.
you've got that really sort of traditional example of
Yeah.
mentoring. But Melina, I'd really like to hear
Mhm.
from you around mentoring can come in so many different forms.
Mm.
Do you need to use the word mentoring, or can you get the experience without actually using the word?
Mm.
Yeah, look, I think what a lot of people hear when they're approached about mentoring is
Mm.
this is an extensive, potentially extensive impost or, it's going to take up a lot of time. And I think something that Heidi said before, you might actually limit your ability to get half an hour of incredibly valuable time with someone over a coffee because it sounds too structured. So, certain arrangements around mentoring lend themselves to more formal arrangements through time and, like a structure around it. And that's sort of a mentoring program. Mentoring, in so many respects, I think, is about this community of interest you create around yourself or you design for yourself and the business that you're growing and scaling. And that is where there's a palette, almost an unlimited palette now, of opportunities of colors you can mix in to make that painting. And that's the really exciting bit. If you've got the objective and desire to really design for yourself a learning journey, then you can avail yourself of a lot of expertise that was traditionally out of the reach of all of us before we had access to the World Wide Webs and everything in it. So I think, there's nothing that will get around the importance of the interpersonal connections. You need that think of that as like a foundation that you can build off, and that, being a member of your local, chamber is a great place to start. Your trade and industry organizations in the business sector that you're in, women's networks. So then the organic and the interpersonal is going to happen, and mentorship arrangements or opportunities may come out of that because people will know a bit more about you and build a bit of trust, and you can then ask the question. But don't delay now on building a mentorship program for yourself based on what you think you need now.
That's that concept of building a mentorship relation or program for yourself is, I think, just really insightful, Melina. And I see a lot of people, and particularly women, get really hung up on the word mentoring and actually get quite distressed. I don't have a mentor. How can I grow? I don't have a mentor. It's like, well, you do. Let's have a look at all of these other, people who are contributing to that. And one of the things that I often talk to leaders about is, what are you wanting to achieve? So it's not, if you're thinking about, I want a mentor, and if that's the goal, you may not get the outcome you want. We had that question before about ending up in a situation that was not necessarily the right one for you. If you think about, what do I want to achieve? What I want to do is grow my skills in this, or I want to understand more about myself and get some feedback, or I want to learn from a person who's done it before me. There's so many different ways that you can answer that question that may not necessarily be in that traditional form. But Jodie, I might cut to you just really quickly, because obviously you have established a much more traditional form of mentoring.
Yes.
What would be your advice on that question?
I think it goes back to, you have to have the trust straight away. So I would be just taking the time to meet with them, see what they can offer you, and work out whether it's a balance and that it's a great match. It really has to be a really good match. Like, as I said, you're showing vulnerability. You need to know they're not going to go and tell everyone that you cried. I mean, I've got a couch in my office. Everyone cries on that. I'm only joking. But they do, you're showing that vulnerability, and you have to trust that person that they're keeping it in the vault, but they're supporting you as well. So I think it was a really great question to think about, whether they have to come to you, but you're both selling it to each other. To find that match. So you're selling yourself to them because you're taking up their time, and they're selling themselves to you with their expertise. So you've got to just find that really great match, like a recruitment process, I guess, in a way, but probably a bit less formal.
And that question about that, part of the question about, do you need a pitch? I mentioned in one of the earlier questions, I wouldn't go into any situation. I wouldn't even get into an elevator without knowing how to answer the question, what do you do and what is your business about?
That's right.
That is absolutely essential with any form of networking, any mentoring, any engagement, any sales. Be really clear on who you are, what you do, and what your business offers. And you need lots of different forms of that, right? You need the 30-second one, but you also need the ability to be able to delve deeper as well, and get really clear and tight on it. Even I have different people ask me about career opportunities, and and how it is that they can put themselves forward for it. And I'm
Mm.
astounded by the number of people I know, particularly women,
Mm.
who I know so much more about them, but they, when I say to them, what are you looking for? They don't
Yeah.
tell me that, they don't tell me that piece. So
Mm.
be your best advocate in this scenario and be really clear in it. Spend some time, think through it. If you're a person who needs to write down your ideas, take some time to do that so that when you're in the moment, you can do it really easily.
Mm.
SK, we have time for maybe one more. I'm very
Um,
conscious that we're all business leaders and owners, and so
yep.
we are very tight on our time, but I think we can get one more in.
Sure. Then I'll take this one. This has all been really positive, but what are the risks of networking?
Great question.
Oh.
Melina?
I think the only risk is that
Um,
and it is a significant one, is that you take your attention, energy,
mm.
um, and focus away from the business that you're
Mm.
trying to build yourself, or
Mm.
even on yourself. So it's a balance. It's
Mm.
you're asking two questions. What do
Yep.
I need at this stage for myself to
Mm.
advance or to succeed or to grow? Because
Mm.
it can also just be about personal growth. What does my business need to scale, to grow, to connect, to get more opportunities?
Mm.
And you can measure it through good old-fashioned profit and loss, but it also
Yeah.
might be just, opportunities for the
Mm.
business to expand and become, more reputable,
Mm.
the brand expansion.
Mm.
But we really do need to balance that with the need to be in the business. So,
Mm.
on the business as well as in the business. And I think
Mm.
that is a constant. I don't
Mm.
know that there's any easy answer.
Mm. And
I
I
think
think,
it's real. Sorry, please go, Jodie.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I think be kind to yourself. Like we are going to you make mistakes as you build a business. Like no one ever goes through it with like, oh, skipping along, everything goes wonderfully. We don't. So I think, you're going to learn as you go through that journey on who you're going to connect with and who's going to give you what you need. And sometimes you'll choose someone that probably hasn't been the right person, but you'll learn from that and you'll move into someone else that can give you what you need from a networking perspective. So I think, yeah, it was a great question. Really good
Mm.
question. I think it's just, building the right trust and respect with someone. Sometimes you might get it wrong. They might want more from you than what you do to them.
And I think that's an important piece that if
Mm.
you do get it wrong, you've
Yeah.
been, willing to make that decision and move forward.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would add, and
Mm.
we've talked about the relationship side of networking
Yeah.
a lot, but also there's the growth piece and partnering.
Mm.
Um, really,
Mm.
the risk is that you enter into things without having the right, partnership arrangements or legal
Mm.
structures, without your
Mm.
eyes wide open. So, yes, there's lots of really positive
Mm.
examples of growth that come from networks, but there are
Mm.
also examples where businesses have connected with a business that's
Mm.
not right for them. And
Mm.
if you do through these networking opportunities find a growth or a partnership opportunity, just make sure that you are
Yeah.
sensible and
Mm.
astute in the way that you go about it. Think about the structures that you set up. Think about your IP.
Mm.
You want to be sharing. You want to have
Yeah.
open and honest conversations. But at the end of the day, you are a business owner, and it's really important that you do
Mm.
set up those structures that are
Mm.
right for you going forward.
Mm.
I'm conscious of our time, so I will
Yeah.
take the opportunity now to say thank you to each of our panelists who are here today, but also everyone who has been involved in this webinar series over the past six webinars. It has been a
Yeah.
fantastic series of topics,
Mm.
and the insights that are part of it are quite extraordinary. So if you haven't had the opportunity to join all of them, please go back and visit them. You can see them on the
Mm.
ACCI website. Was so pleased to hear Andrew's announcement today that we will be continuing. So we will see you again in a couple of months. So make sure you look out for that. But most importantly, please keep connected. Keep connected with the
Mm.
Australian Chamber as well as your state chambers. My chamber is the Queensland Chamber, so I
Mm.
would love to hear from any of you online who are part of the Queensland
Mm.
business community, and we can continue to grow together. Before we close, though, I would like to particularly thank you, ACCI, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for the leadership role that they are taking in relation to women in business. This is absolutely critical. We, as a chamber network, made a commitment to providing women, business owners and leaders with the opportunity to be able to, whether they're starting a business, growing a business, leading a business, or they are in business themselves, to be able to be the best that they can be in that and to really grow their business. And it's something that's connected, that we do have across all of the chambers. In particular, I'd like to call out Jodie Trembarth for her incredible leadership and passion in this space. Thank you for all it is that you're doing, Jodie, and I'm very confident that we will continue to support businesses going forward. We've talked a lot about joining your chambers. Reach out to your state chambers. There's one in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, every state across Australia. There are the events opportunities, but we also do a lot of work in advocating for you as well. So, for example, right now, the Queensland Chamber, my chamber, is running the Future of Women in Business survey. Anyone who'd like to participate in that, please do. It's insights from those surveys, like the one that the Australian Chamber ran earlier this year, that means that we understand what it is that female leaders need, but it also means that we can advocate for you to ensure that going forward, every woman can participate in our economy and build a really bright future in their business. So thank you again to everyone, and really looking forward to seeing you at the next series.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.